For a long time, I thought that perhaps the hardest part of changing direction in terms of my career would be the moment that I walked away from it. The conversations, the decisions, the uncertainty of what comes next. But that wasn't it. The hardest part came a little bit later, quietly, when the structure of what I knew just vanished. When you spent decades inside organisations, you don't just work there, you adapt to them. Your days are shaped for you. Your priorities are reinforced. Your sense of progress is constantly reflected back at you by meetings, calendars, targets and titles. And you don't realise how much of yourself is wrapped up in all of that until it's gone. When full-time employment ended for me, there was no dramatic collapse. There was mild panic and fear, of course. However, what I needed came next. Space. Just space. And for the first time, that space felt like relief. There was no alarm clock I had to get up to, no commute, no one expecting me to perform a role at a certain time. Moreover, and this was the best part, no bosses to deal with. And I use that term bosses intentionally. However, slowly something else crept in. A kind of quiet disorientation. And the thing is, when no one's setting a rhythm for your day, you have to decide what matters. And that sounds quite simple until you try it. I found myself drifting at times, busy but not really anchored anywhere. Productive but not always purposeful. Not because I had lack of motivation, but because I'd spent so long responding to an external structure that I hadn't practiced creating and refining one of my own. This is the part that no one really discusses when they talk about leaving jobs or starting up on their own. I know we talk about freedom, flexibility, owning your time and all of that good stuff. The thing we perhaps don't talk about a lot is about the loss of identity which can follow. When someone asks you, what do you do? And your answer suddenly feels thinner than it used to. When your confidence wobbles, not because you've forgotten your skills, but because the environment that validated them has gone silent. That can feel really unsettling and disconcerting. And if you're not careful, it's easy to misinterpret that discomfort as failure. Yeah, I did that at first as well. And I wondered whether I'd made a mistake, whether I'd stepped away too early and didn't fight hard enough to get back into a full-time role, whether I should rush to replace the structure I'd lost with something equally as rigid, just to feel stable again. However, here's what I'm understanding more and more. The discomfort isn't a signal to retreat. It's a signal that you're being asked to participate differently in your own life. Structure isn't bad, and I'm not pointing the finger at structure at all. Borrowed structure can only carry you so far, and at some point, especially later in life, you have to decide what your version of structure looks like. What kind of mornings work best for you? What kind of work deserves your energy? What pace allows you to think clearly and respond rather than constantly reacting? That process takes time, and it takes patience, particularly if you're used to external validation. There are days now where nothing obvious really happens. No meetings, no applause, no visible milestones, and yet those days really matter. They're teaching me how to listen again, how to notice what feels right and what doesn't, how to build a quieter form of confidence, one that doesn't rely on somebody else's approval. For me, I don't think leaving a job is the hard part. The hard part is learning to trust yourself when all the scaffolding has been removed. That said, it's also where something really important begins. Because once you stop waiting for permission, you realise you were never actually waiting for an opportunity. You were waiting for reassurance. And reassurance to restart and to rebuild is something that you eventually have to learn how to give yourself. If you're in this phase where the structure has gone, but the new shape hasn't fully formed yet, you're not behind. You're not a laggard. I think that you're in transition. And in my experience, transitions feel really uncertain. This is the 51st chapter, and this is the part of the story that doesn't come with answers yet, just awareness.